And we really teach a much slower approach of value first, value first, value first. And that, that's kind of what we're using. And then when I get professional salespeople who've like really, really done this stuff for a while, it's different. Like they're better at it. And yet I still feel when you're selling, like most of our clients are kind of high ticket, high end service sales. And so they're selling something that's very expensive. And there is a slower roll to all of that. So if I could get everyone to do one thing in sales, I would have them relax a little, give more value, and just go a little slower in the process. Because it often seems like people are, I mean, always be selling, yeah, like ABS, but at the same time, creating relationships takes time. Tell me a little bit about who you work with, what you're excited about right now with outbound marketing. Yeah, give me a little fly over the base and tell me what's up.
Okay, so I work with not specific verticals. I work with almost personas. So sales teams where selling is not their primary skill set. And what I mean by that is FMCG is an example of where, you know, they're probably more relational than sales. But then you go to somewhere like financial services, and typically those people have got a finance degree, an economics degree. Right. You know, maybe they're in wealth creation, maybe they work for an investment bank, and they need to have that financial smarts and be able to understand the markets, but they also need to be able to sell. And they struggle because they haven't had that formal education. So I work very well in that sector, in the finance sector, also tech, because tech's the same. So, you know, you get kids, anybody under, 35.
Yeah.
Kids who are really super bright, got all the IT skills, ICT skills on the planet. And then they just struggle with, well, how do I ask somebody for a meeting without sounding, like a complete clown or a cliche or too spammy? Or a lot of people think they're asking for a meeting or asking for a telephone call, and they're actually not. If you look through their emails or their outreach, there's nowhere there where they've actually said, hey, can we have some kind of engagement? But they think that they have.
They think they have. So, I love that. I mean, I don't know about you, but I guess if well, first off, I think most people who haven't grown up in sales, it is one of the most anxiety-provoking things that even a very smart, very successful person. I'll tell you just real quick. So here, how I got here. I started out as an English professor. I was an academic. I was teaching here at University of Denver in Colorado, and I wanted to see if there was anyone else in the world who would pay for my skills. So I created a business with a partner for people in book clubs, in reading groups. And because nobody else was doing this at the time, we got to do consulting for the Oprah Winfrey Show, for Oprah Winfrey, for the Good Morning America, for the Early Show. And all those people were kind of picking up on that time that like book groups and book clubs are a big deal. And publishers were just starting to realize, oh, if we can get book groups to take over this book, they can make it a bestseller. So I had that experience of being able to sell something because it was such a niche market and it was so specific. And we pretty much wrote our own ticket. It wasn't hard. We did do a lot of like service first. So when people would call, this is back in the early 2000s, we had all these free resources on our website for how to have better discussions. If anyone called, we would talk to them and give them troubleshooting. It turns out you're like, what could possibly be people troubleshooting with a book group? But basically the hostesses it really mattered to them that when the book club was at their house, that it be really successful. And so that's what we taught them how to do. And that business was bizarrely successful. And pretty soon I was the Channel 7 book girl and did Colorado Public Radio on books. Like I just talked about that. And then I wanted to see if I could train other people to create highly targeted offers like that. So I started my company, which is called Super Tight Brand. And what we do at Super Tight is make people into specialist by refining their position, their audience, their target, their avatar, finding those things to kind of bring out. And then in the past couple of years, sales became so intense and LinkedIn became intense. And so we started using LinkedIn, and we were doing so well off there. We just kind of knew that we need to teach social selling and LinkedIn to our clients. So when I'm on LinkedIn, I am just a LinkedIn expert. I don't do, I don't talk about all the other stuff because people on LinkedIn want to know how to do LinkedIn. So that's the story of me and how I got here. So anyway, all that to say, what I notice for people in sales here in America, especially, again, in the kind of small to mid-sized companies, people who aren't familiar, aren't as trained in sales. So that group of people, the problem is they want to get into all of it too quickly. When they do content marketing, when they're having a discovery call, and we really teach a much slower approach of value first, value first, value first. And that's kind of what we're using. And then when I get professional salespeople who like really, really done this stuff for a while, it's different. Like they're better at it. And yet I still feel when you're selling, like most of our clients are kind of high ticket, high end service sales. And so they're selling something that's very expensive, and there is a slower roll to all of that. So if I could get everyone to do one thing in sales, I would have them relax a little, give more value, and just go a little slower in the process. Because it often seems like people are, always be selling, like ABS, but at the same time, creating relationships takes time. And, when I'm meeting people from around the world, I'm not trying to get on Zoom and like tell them about my program.
Yeah. And I think LinkedIn is a really good snapshot of those challenges, because everybody knows, right? So you get a connection request and then bang, someone will pitch you, and they haven't even found out if you're in the same region, if you even use their products and services. And my favorite is when somebody pitches me on sales training or on LinkedIn training or lead generation, and you're like, so clearly you haven't even had a look at what it is that I do, because why would I employ somebody to teach me to do the things that I teach other people to do?
Yes, I've had some great back and forth with that. Like someone gives me the offer and I'm like, hey, why don't you check out my profile and see if you still think this makes sense? Then they'll come back again. They still haven't looked at my profile, and they start talking about, with the top 1% experts, coaches and consultants such as you, we have, and I write back and say, why would I do that when that's what we get paid to teach other people how to do? And then they're like, we can tell by your stunning record of achievement. It just keeps going. And it's like they never get embarrassed. I'm like, who is reading this?
My guess is that's probably an automated messaging system. Yeah. But I think that
and I was going to say, another thing I love about LinkedIn is when I actually go look, I think LinkedIn is great because you can really check under the hood. When I go and look at their profile and I scroll down to the experience section, and, they're talking in their about section about they've done this, that, and the other wonderful thing. And then you go look and they just graduated 2 years ago from, Zanesfield Community College. And I'm like, boy, you've had a busy, busy career working for Time Warner in the last 2 years, man. You are just hitting it out of the park.
Yeah. But I do think that is a really good microsystem of what's happening with salespeople across, at least from where I train, that people are just rushing to try and get to that point where, they're to start talking about their products and services, and good relationships and good business just takes longer than that.
Yeah.
There's a massive amount of risk associated with making a purchase from the buyer side. So if they already don't buy a service similar to yours, then they've got to take money from somewhere else and allocate it to you. There's a risk associated with that. There's a whole bunch of risk associated with the time and effort that it requires for them to, say they're going to hire you or me, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a whole bunch of meetings, and there's a whole, they need to get people together to be able to do the training, all these sorts of things. So there's a lot of risk associated with that, even though on the seller side, you think, well, how hard is it? Send me a purchase order and we'll get going.
Right.
Understand that, you have to get past, you have to build a whole bunch of trust, credibility, rapport. And online and LinkedIn, people often, they just go straight for the kill. That they've got no strategies around to be able to do that. And in actual fact, as a result, the bar for making a difference is actually incredibly low because nobody's doing it. We hear people talk about 12, 15 touches to start a conversation. If you're on LinkedIn, you do 2 authentic interactions, you're better than 95, 96, 98% of the people out there. So
that
people are,
right there, what you just said is the 10-second platinum clip. Like, I love that. It's like the best thing so far. You're so right. I think it's a pretty exciting time. I find that honestly, 2 or 3, if I'm talking to someone who shares my interests and if I share their values, yeah, 2 or 3, we can generally have a good conversation fairly quickly because we're both operating from there. But you're right. I mean, do you think the bar is going to be this low for long? What do you think about that?
I'm actually worried that it's going to be lower.
Yeah, you think?
Wow, I'm genuinely concerned. The big thing that I'm really concerned about with LinkedIn is that this desire by a lot of people to try and connect with as many people as possible. So they like using a Facebook or an Instagram mentality where how many people can I connect with? The more connections I've got, the better quality or the better I'll look. That's what I think it is. It's a vanity metric. The reality is if you connect to a lot of people and those people aren't in your sphere of influence, and that could be your customers, your suppliers, the people that you just want to listen to, okay, and people are outside of that, then your feed is going to be pretty dirty. It's going to be it's not going to give you any value, and people are going to migrate away from LinkedIn. And the irony is they're going to say LinkedIn or social media is rubbish for business because there's nothing in that feed that has any value for me. But they're to blame because they've built their own feed and they don't get it because they're connecting with every single person that sends them a connection request instead of going, does this fit my strategy? Is the content that this person posting going to be something that I want to read every day?
Right.
And if they're not, it's okay to say, you know what, hey, Alan, thanks for the connection request, but I'm not connecting with people in outside my geographical location because, I have no intention of going to wherever to go and do some training. So that's where I think the challenge is. So people are trying to shove as many names into their funnel, but I think that's going to have a really detrimental effect on their experience. What do you think?
I agree. We have people who come in with 25,000, 30,000, 40,000 connections, and they will have had some help to build that many. And then we'll be like, okay, so why are we talking? You've got 40,000 connections. You clearly know how to do content marketing. What's the problem? And, they'll say, well, I'm getting 20 calls a week, 20 initial calls a week off LinkedIn. Oh, are those 20 calls with people who can afford you, who are sophisticated enough, who understand what's going on and value what you do? We like to joke about keeping it to the people with the ATP, ability to pay, and also the ETP, the eagerness to pay. And by that, we mean psychologically, they're experienced and sophisticated in whatever your industry is, and they understand the value. So what we generally have to do with those 25,000 connections is strip it down to, like, say, 250. And we start over again with, let's find 250 people who, out of this huge number, that represent the kind of people you'd like to start talking to. And then let's find some really killer piece of content that we can send as part of a re-engagement message. Hey, Mark, it's been a while since, been a minute since we connected on LinkedIn. I don't know if you're using LinkedIn in order for your business development, but if you are, here's a piece of content that might be helpful. And then stop there. Like, don't come at that person again. Like that, let them start a new romance with you where you are never shoving that in your face. But it's funny because it's actually harder to do with the people who have 25,000 connections than the people who start in with like 250 connections.
Yeah. See, with 25,000, I'd almost be saying, hey, let's just start again.
Yeah.
Delete that account and restart it. It's interesting. So when I talk to people about deleting connections, people are very nervous about that here. They feel like they're giving something up. The reality is they're actually gaining something. They're going to gain quality of feed. But one of the cool things about it is how difficult it is to unconnect or disconnect. And I'll explain. So you actually have to go and open up their profile and then click on more and click disconnect, right? Which is a really long way when you consider how easy it is to just go accept as many connections, right? Yeah. So, but the cool thing is that you've registered a connection on their profile or a view on their profile. And what I find is the 10% of people who do want to be genuinely connected will look back at your profile or send you a message, something, go, hey, I thought we were connected. I can't believe that. And then those people are obviously engaged with you in some way. So you can then reconnect with that 10 or 15% of people that truly want to be in your network. And then the 85 or 80% of people that you've disconnected from, that you think this, for example, they're outside your geographical location, or maybe they're, in my instance, they're IT managers or CIOs, or, you know, and I've got nothing to offer them. You know, then they'll just go, and then my connection count will come down, and it'll make it much, much cleaner. But really, you don't actually miss the people who really want you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because it isn't Instagram, it's not Facebook. The 25,000 people aren't really worth that much to you. I've never heard that before, Mark, but that is brilliant. I mean, because then everyone who's coming back is actually demonstrating and doing some of the work for you by saying, hey, no, I do want to be in your group of people. Yeah. I mean, it is just, yeah. Anyway, that's absolutely brilliant. So in Australia, tell me about LinkedIn and Down Under in Australia, New Zealand. How do people feel about it? How do they feel about it compared to perhaps other social platforms? What's sort of the reputation of it down there?
Okay, so I was actually talking to a senior account manager from LinkedIn yesterday. I was in a meeting with Leanne Neighbour from LinkedIn and one of our combined clients, and she said that Australia and New Zealand has the highest uptake in business space per capita of LinkedIn. So even though we've only got, I think we've got 8 million or 9 million users, we've got a population of 25 million, which is not huge, but the amount of people that are in work and have a LinkedIn account is one of the highest on the planet, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think my theory, we sort of wondered why that was, and we don't have any official data, but we thought that was because the geographical distances are quite large, because we're almost the same size as Northern America, right? So we're used to using things like Zoom, social media, or messaging systems to be able to communicate within our organisations and rely less on that face-to-face sort of thing. And it's a great way for places to be able to, for people to be able to communicate with the head office or get access to key people. So in Australia, we might have a large organisation with just one head office in Sydney, for example, and the people that are in Melbourne and Brisbane, who are large metropolitan areas, very large, are used to trying to find another way to communicate with a key person instead of having large branches in their own location.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's part of your culture, really.
Yes, yeah. So that was, look, there's no official data. That's just what we came up with yesterday. But it's divided into two spots, really. There's, the people that find some real value about it in it and are strong-willed enough to be able to forge their way, and then there's sort of the other people that are it's just another social media platform and it's a bit of junk. And I'm guessing that's probably the same everywhere.
Yeah. So what I hear from I have clients in Europe, and I mean, again, my 4 to 5 clients in Europe, this is just anecdotal evidence, right? It's what they say. I can't prove it. But what they do say is that the reputation of Facebook, particularly, is very poor in Europe right now. There are many, many more people in Europe versus other parts of the world who are like, see ya with Facebook.
Right.
And because people, apparently, according to these people, feel so strongly, they're starting to create bonds in LinkedIn that they used to, be involved in Facebook groups and all that stuff. I don't, here in Colorado, I know some people, including my business partner, who feel that way, as in get me far away from Facebook. But I would say LinkedIn for us is, it's still a bit newer. Of 100 smart entrepreneurs I know, probably 90 of them, all 100 would have a profile, and they would have put some work into making it good, but they're not using it on any regular basis. And what they tell me is, I've got 5,000 connections and I post, but I get so little engagement compared to, Facebook or whatever and that's where I think for LinkedIn that the one-to-one stuff becomes so important. Because it really, is there a real relationship? And when people think about social media here, I think the first thing they think about is posting. And one of the things I tell people is, listen, we can get you those clients if you never post a single gosh darn thing. Now, I'm not advising that they should do that. Obviously, we'd like them to have a content strategy, but the point is, like, if you have a really optimized profile and you create one-on-one messages, you can meet Mark McInnes from around the world by finding other people's cool posts and resharing them. And most people, I mean, I think you have to do that in an authentic way. You can't do it just to meet somebody. Like, I wouldn't advise that. But my point is, there's a different social selling technique that happens here that I think is effective, that people aren't really used to thinking of. Because what they're used to thinking of is, you know, how many people liked my whatever, and how many whatever follows this, that, or the other thing I got.
Yeah. So I think 2014, 15, and 16, I spent a lot of time doing presentations and talking to people about why use LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Still there?
Yes.
Yep. And now
dipped out, but we came back. So go ahead and start over in 2014.
Okay. So in 2014, 15, and 16, I spent a lot of time talking to people about why they need to be using LinkedIn and why they should be on there, and showing people what they could do. Now, and since 2016, my conversations or people will ring me up and say, come and talk to us about, you know, some sales skills, and make sure that LinkedIn's incorporated as part of that. So it's no longer, you know, one of the things I do. It's actually just part of what I do, if that makes any sense. So instead of having like LinkedIn training, sales skills, sales coaching, it's just like my offer includes, you know, digital selling, social selling, whatever the words are that you want to use.
And the offer then just always includes LinkedIn training? Is that,
well, it's just in my language, so
yeah. Okay, yeah. I get it.
So if we're talking about how to reach out to people, and I was giving examples, then, you know, and I would just go, okay, this is what you would do on the telephone. This is how an email might look. This is what an email might look. This is how you might reach out to somebody on LinkedIn. You know, this is how you might do that on Twitter if you were going to do that. You know, this would be a voicemail strategy. This might be a video strategy. You know, so it's just one of those things that I would talk about. It's no longer, you know, a partition, and on LinkedIn, then it's, you know,
it is part of the whole. So
Correct.
If we wanted to be a good referral source for you, and anyone was watching this, or we were sharing you with anyone, who is that you? Are you specifically looking for people in Australia, New Zealand? Do you like to work with people from other parts of the world? What is the demographics and the psychographics of the people who make amazing clients for you?
Yeah, so typically I'm focused on APAC, just because of the geographical regions. I have done training in North America, but that typically coincides with, you know, when I've got something else on over in that area.
Yeah.
So that's not out of the question. But typically I help people where sales skills is they're not their primary part of education. So, you know, financial services sector, very successful in that space. Also the tech space, you know, so people that are really clued up technology-wise, so, you know, ICT, software, SaaS, that sort of thing. And then I can help take their everyday super smart brains and give them some sales skills that's really easy for them to be able to implement.
How long have you been with those people? Like, how long is this current iteration of what you're doing? How long have you been doing that?
So 7 years, but of course, you know, the content changes as time changes. So of course, LinkedIn's changed an enormous amount in that time, and people's strategies needed to change as well. So it's interesting. I think our messaging across all those platforms is heavily influenced by social media, and I think our messaging strategies are getting shorter to match that.
Very cool. So as far as do you also have a team? Are you a small shop?
Yeah, no, I'm a small shop. So there's me and another gentleman called Dean Mannix. He's a super clued up individual, and between the two of us, we pretty much cope with everything that we need to do on a client perspective. So
yeah, we have a small shop as well. And I was just talking to a gentleman who I think is one of the world's leading digital marketing experts, and he has a small shop too. So I think there is something to be said for the quality. You know, when you're not recently, a few people have chosen to come with us, and they were comparing us to another company here that is in America that is a big social selling LinkedIn company, and they have lots of bells and whistles. And they definitely know what they're doing because they've been doing it for a long time. But I think what that allows, or at least for us, what being a small shop gives you is that we know these people intimately. work with them in all these different stages. So when it comes to articulation, which is my favorite part of the whole thing, because, you know, I'm a writer and a former English teacher, we really can sort of share that one brain with them in a way. And I'm I'm used to having people who are extremely bright, like you said, but maybe haven't quite found the articulation to connect with somebody else. And that's like the most fun part for me. So if you run across people anywhere who are English speakers, because unfortunately I'm limited to just that, and they're not as tight as your financial expert people and your tech people. Like, you can tell they've got something good, but you're not even sure like what needs to be articulated. Those are people we really like to get. So for example, we have a client who does an industrial manufacturing survey, and he's the only person in the world that does this kind of survey. And it's really neat, because basically what it does is it allows industrial manufacturers who are participating, they're able to get really good hard data about exactly what's happening within their company. And they can make, instead of doing the right, you know, trying to do things right, they can just do the right thing for their company.
Yep.
And it's hugely valuable. But it's one of those things that's tricky to articulate, because you can't just say, oh, it's an industrial manufacturing survey, because people in industrial manufacturing don't know what that is.
Yeah. They just switched off by the time we got halfway through that. Yeah, no, I completely. So do you help develop the content and their social profile and basically do a social strategy, or does it extend beyond that?
Yeah, so we really start with developing the content and finding what that brand promise is going to be. What's the overall mission of this communication? Then we do a LinkedIn-led strategy. So we are specialists specifically in LinkedIn, and then fold that in with lead magnet, newsletters, websites, whatever this person, or, you know, whatever's sort of missing for them. And again, people who come to us, they have a successful business, but maybe it's not as successful as it could be, because it is a little off the beaten path. You know, or they're in a very competitive environment, or they're someplace in a business where people don't really understand social selling. So we're going to change the name of our business from Super Tight Brand, which is what we started out. We're going to change it to Super Tight Social Selling, because that's really what we've evolved into.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it starts with LinkedIn, because we like to teach people how to get these conversations going as quickly as they can. I think the advantage is, even if you're not quite sure how to articulate it, just by making some friends on LinkedIn and actually talking to people without selling them, you can start to get a sense of what works. You know, what things that you say get picked up on, what content that you distribute is popular. This gentleman was just telling me a story about this medical company that they sell refurbished medical equipment and to radiologists, I believe. And the piece of content that was super popular was on radiologist's salary. This was this thing they put out that blew up like crazy, even though it doesn't have anything to do with specifically medical equipment, right?
Yeah.
It's just something that's interesting to those people. I love LinkedIn as a testing ground for articulation, because and again, you do have to kind of get your hands on it. It doesn't work. As you know, this type of thing doesn't work if you drive by once a week and you're like, yeah, I don't know, 200 people, you know, it's not like that. But for our clients, a client for them is worth, you know, 50,000 or 100,000 or 250,000. So, you know, hey, if you've got a LinkedIn strategy that's bringing in 5 to 10 of those people per year, then awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think you nailed it before when you said it's not about trying to drive enormous amounts of engagement. You just want the right piece of engagement from the right people.
Yeah.
And it could be as little, what I found is it could be as little as 5 likes, you know, but that gives you an opportunity to reach out and go, hey, I saw you like that article, and you know, if you like that, then there's a high chance that you're going to like this stuff as well. Or, you know, if you just happen to have an event, we're running an event, this sounds like it could be perfect. And all you want to do is start a conversation. Now, if you've got 250 likes or even more, and I'm sure you've had content that's gone viral, there's no chance for you to go through that. It actually makes it impossible. So
it makes it's harder work. Yeah.
Well, it feels great because you've got, you know, 60,000 views and 250 likes, but how do you process that?
I mean, it's kind of like in the initial years of social media, it was all about those numbers, right? And this was what meant something was good. And then I'm sure there are industries that for which that does translate. I just haven't been involved with them. So for me, that stuff, like you said, it's an ego boost. It's neat that people thought that. But as far as who am I going to meet that day? What kind of business am I going to get to do? What relationships are forming? It's a much better thing for me if there's 5 likes, because I can look at 5 profiles in an hour. I can say, hey, this Mark McGinnis guy looks really great. And the way I found you, by the way, I don't know if you remember this, but I did a piece on social selling experts. And I say a post, just something short. And it was, who do you like? And here's a couple people I've been following recently. And, 3 people, your name came up. So 3 people in the world somehow found my post about social selling. I have about 5,000 connections. So it's not, you know what I'm saying?
I'm the same, 5,700.
Yeah.
So not many, right? So for people in our game, it's not many.
Yeah. So if you're watching this at home, kids, think about that. Okay. Cause that's an interesting number. So my point is, it's not like I'm some big macro influencer on LinkedIn, but simply by doing that, and 3 people said your name. So then I go look, and then I go look for your content. I'm like, oh, this is a really good piece. And then I reposted one of your pieces because it was good. And I loved what you were saying about, some of these words that kind of mess up our thinking. That's what the post was about those terms that get in the way for sales. So now all I want to know, and then I'll leave you alone because I'm sure you have other things to do. Like what can we do? Because for whatever reason, I have a lot of people from Australia reaching out, perhaps because you all are so busy on LinkedIn and that's why it's happening. But what can we do to support you? What can we do to further your aims and your goals? What would you like to see?
So look, if you're watching this, for the audience, feel free to jump onto my LinkedIn profile. There's quite a few articles there, and I try to include articles that are actionable, so you can actually cut and paste part of the articles and take and use that as a connection request. Insert, some of your key characteristics, and I've explained all those sorts of bits and pieces, in mail. So there's lots of really good takeaways there. I think people from anywhere will be able to find some of that stuff's really useful.
I'm sorry to speak over you. I agree. I think your stuff is great. I think it's really actionable. It's easy to follow. That's one of the reasons I followed you, because I loved what you were doing with it. And I like how you kind of come from a place that, I don't want to get too woo-woo. You come from a place that is energy oriented, spiritual, not religious. I just mean you have a kindness about you.
Oh, thank you.
I can tell that it matters, like how you treat people. And that's something that is about the way you are in the world. And so when you talk about how words shape our actions and shape our thinking and our behavior, some people might say, oh, well, that's a little bit, philosophical for me, but you instantly then bring that down into here's how to do something with that in a very practical way, which is something I enjoy about your writing. So yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. So most of my work is based around the psychology of people. So we know what it's going to make people say yes, whether that be a connection request or a meeting or whatever. And it's not manipulative at all. It's more about appealing to what people actually really want, which kind of makes sense. Yeah. But yeah.
The good old,
that's cool.
That's awesome. Well, we will definitely, like I said, we'll take this video. We will make some edits of this video, and we will send everything we've got back to you so you can do whatever you like with it. I'm Ellen Melko Moore from Super Tight Social Selling in Colorado in North America. And I always love to chat with people on Zoom, and getting to have this conversation without it having to be salesy or whatever is one of my favorite things to do. And then the other thing that I do, Mark, is I do free profile audits. So anybody who wants can sign up on my schedule, and we'll sit down for half an hour and do an audit of their profile. And I'm happy to do that with you at some point, obviously not recorded if you're interested. And again, it's not about, your profile's great, but it's always interesting just to see how it reads to somebody else. And so a lot of what we're doing in the audits isn't about, oh, you're doing this wrong or this isn't good. It's how can we elevate this game a little bit, because we're not inside the bottle with you. In the same way, you can evaluate us and what we're doing in a way that we can't do as authentically because we're on the inside of our own bottle. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And look, can I just echo what you've said to everybody that's watching this? Like, reach out to Ellen. Like, really, we've had 2 minutes worth of conversation before we pressed record here. You know, you're this easy to talk to. You're clearly extremely genuine. If you have a look at your LinkedIn profile, you can see you've got an awful lot of authority in the space. So it's really easy. I love the way that you were so easy to communicate with, especially getting a meeting. I mean, here we are on the other side of the world, and you made it really, really simple for me.
Thank you.
So thanks for that. And I'm sure if people are located in North America or wherever, they'll find it just as easy. So take the offer of.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Uh-oh, we froze again for a second. Thank you so much. Well, I will keep following you and sharing your amazing articles. If when I write or post things that work for you, please do. And as I find out, as I connect with more and more people from, are you in Sydney?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle. I'm in the middle of town. Yeah.
Okay. So I heard about you initially from Sue Parker, was the person.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah. So thank you, Sue. And as I meet other people from Australia, I will make sure they know about you, because I think I probably am running into some of your target clients, and I will send them your way.
Lovely.
Okay.
Could not ask more. Thank you very much. Very, very grateful for the chat.
You too.
Thanks, Alan.
See you soon. Okay. Bye.
Bye.